What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the House of the Conqueror. I am Johnny B. Crazy, and this is a special podcast. We'll be talking about Sansa Stark, the expectations and perceptions of women in Westeros, in particular, Sansa's journey through Game of Thrones, and in the Song of Ice and Fire, we'll be talking a little bit just mainly about the life and times of Sansa Stark, and we'll get into some good juicy stuff. I think I have a very special guest with me here today, Katrin C from the YouTube channel Katrin C from My Point of View. Go check it out. She specializes in Sansa videos and The Walking Dead, so don't or Fear the Walking Dead, I believe. But without further ado, I will introduce her. Katrin C, how are you doing today? And tell everybody a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
Yes, hello, Johnny. And first of all, I have to say, I feel so honored to be asked to come on to your channel. So thank you so much for that. Well, I didn't think in a million years that I would have a YouTube channel of my own, but over the years, the hate for girls like Sansa and Daenerys and others grew. That's why I felt I need to say something too. That's why I started my channel. And at the same time, Fear the Walking Dead has its season premiere, season 5. So that's a show I like too. So I looked into the episodes there. And now I'm here talking to you about Sansa.
Well, the pleasure is all mine, and I am really happy to be doing this. We're going to have a very fun conversation, and we'll simply just kind of get into it. Start with Sansa Stark's childhood. She's the eldest daughter in the family, between old Stone Cold Ned Stark and Lady Stoneheart, the kinder, gentler Catelyn, if some of my friends would say. And she has the pressure of her all the pressure of being a lady on her, what it means in this society, the standards you need to go by, how you need to be perceived in the world. She seemingly has all of these burdens of society on her. Where Arya, and Arya is my favorite character. I won't say, I'm not casting shade here, but Arya has it a lot easier. She's free. She has more free will, in my opinion, than Sansa. But yeah, in general, how do you feel about Sansa's childhood and the implications of just what she had to go through and just kind of, in my opinion, her queen training.
Well, first of all, you have to look at girls in that time of era, and mostly the oldest girl in every family. Families wanted boys, and when they got girls, and if they got several girls, the oldest one has to be asked to be married off first before they can go on to marry off the younger girls. So that's one kind of the burden. But the second thing is if you come from a great house, there is expectation that you will not marry below your status. It's a bonus if you go higher, if you can get into an even greater house. And that's why they need to school them, to educate them early on, because they want the girls to get married around 10, 11 years, not be married, but be betrothal, so they
Right.
can marry later. So it's a big burden, and this every oldest girl of the family know this, and they also know who are they going to get married to. Often, if you're going to marry to someone in a great house, it's a man who are much older. So of course they dreams about fairy tales and beautiful knights, prince and princesses. But
Florian the Fool and John Kill.
yes, but their reality is often a man double age of them, and then
Their reality is
they
Liza and John Aaron.
yeah, exactly. Have been married before. They need a younger girl who are fertile and can give them children. So yeah, that's a big burden, and they have to be schooled to learn the men from the greater houses to ask for the hand.
Yeah, I mean, you're a very lucky person if you are to fall in love. The interesting thing is, love is more common in these arranged marriages than you think, mainly
Yeah,
because these people have to grow to love one another. It's almost, you love your family members, especially the ones you live with, mainly because you have to. I know I'm being a little crass here, but in general, the
so true.
proximity to people, if they're not completely horrible people and don't disgust you, you can learn to love them. I think it's an interesting thing, especially with Sansa. They grow up with these stories, like you were saying. Arya, her stories are more of the boys' stories for adventure and such. And Sansa has the romance in her eyes, and that's about the only thing she can really hope to hold onto in this world. And have
Mm.
babies and have a beautiful husband. And at this point, Ned gets blindsided by Robert and this betrothal to Joffrey Baratheon. And we were talking a little bit about that pre-stream, but yeah, she had the rose-colored glasses on. What do you think?
Yes, I mean, it was her luckiest day when Robert asked for Sansa's hand for his son Joffrey, because it was dream come true. She can't believe how happy she is to got this opportunity to marry a beautiful boy, a boy that looks at her and she can tell that he likes what he sees. I mean, there is prospect for love there. So when Ned hesitated this marriage, I understand Sansa. She was terrified that he will say no. So she asked her mother, if you can talk to dad about this. Please, please, please. This is all I ever wanted. Of course, it's all she ever wanted. She didn't want to marry an elderly man who have already had two wives. She wanted to be married to someone in her own age and to be proud to her family that she have achieved one of the things, marry above her own house. So she will not bring shame to her house. So yes, what a fantastic chance she had with this marriage.
She did. She won the lottery. She saw it. The only person that did not see it was Ned. I mean, but she saw Joffrey. I think Ned saw Joffrey for who he truly was. He probably saw a lot of Jaime Lannister in Joffrey, remembering what happened after, the battle in King's Landing after, Jaime had killed the Mad King, and Ned
Mm,
comes upon the babies in cloaks and Jaime sitting in the throne. It's just to be tied to that house, just to know that he has that Lannister blood in him, may even just give Ned
mm,
cause. But the way he acts at Winterfell, I mean, it's like your stereotypical awful prince that's snobbish and stuck up. That is until he starts to get really violent, and we see what happens with Arya and Lady, and then the only Stark we
mm,
don't know if they get to develop their warging abilities with Sansa. Lady gets tragically
yeah.
taken.
Mm. And I was a bit irritated with Ned because I thought he didn't give Robert a fight over Lady. But at the same time, Ned told Arya that he think that Sansa did the right thing to be in middle ground, not support Arya, not support Joffrey, and the effect was that Lady have to be put down. He knew that you can't say that the prince or the king do something wrong, not in that time of era. And Ned knew he had to pay with Lady's life because you can't go on to the king and try to make him to change his mind because he had the queen and the boy who were hurt, and everyone looking at the Robert.
Yeah, and who are they gonna
That's the
believe?
time. Yeah.
Those stinky northerners? You know,
Hmm.
savage northerners. Who are those people? Who do they think they are? And there's nothing he would be putting his entire family at risk. But I agree with
Yeah.
you. I didn't like Ned in that moment, but it was at least honorable. Thankfully, he didn't let Ilan Payne do it. You know, that'd have been
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah.
And that's the first
Absolutely awful.
time we get the Hound saving Sansa in a sense, right? And we
Yeah.
gotta talk about this guy.
Yeah. And I, when I saw that episode when the Hound went up to Sansa when she was a bit scared about Ellen Payne, I thought, why does he care? Because I haven't noticed Sansa when I first saw the show or first read the book. I didn't think so much about Sansa as a character because you have Arya. I mean, that ferocious little girl that everyone loved, that I love too. The girl who breaks all the stereotypes. And Ned Stark, Sean Bean. I mean, Sansa just was there. And it was when the Hound looked at her and saw something in Sansa when I stopped and think, hmm, what is it about this girl? And then I went back and then I have followed her and I still do. And I will do that in the books who will come out too. And yeah, that was a big moment for me with Sansa when the
Well, you
Hound
could
arrived.
say she has an extreme amount of discipline as well.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah,
she is true to her standards. She has to really not divert from from the past. She goes by the book, and a
yeah,
lady's armor is courtesy. And I got that up on the screen, but that's where this starts to come in. She even is, even though Ellen Payne scares the hell out of her, she's still courteous to him. She still
yeah,
puts on a mask. Arya wears masks, physical masks that you can see, but Sansa wears many different faces as well. The sisters have more in common than a lot of people like to give them credit for. They're both on
yeah.
diverging paths that, you know, they go completely away from each other, yet they're on parallel type journeys, like adventures,
Mhm.
and they each have to put on a different face for their different settings they're at. You have Sansa as the girl, then you have Sansa as she's putting on a face for Cersei. You have Sansa as she's fighting for Joffrey, and then she realizes she's fighting for a stupid boy. you
Yeah,
know, and she
so
really
true.
does that. But yeah, go ahead. What do you? Yeah, from the end of the crossroads, she gets to King's Landing, and then she starts to really understand about this life at court. But she's at home there, but it also scares the hell out of her, which I
Yeah.
understand. What do you think?
Well, she is much alone down there because Arya, she goes her way. And she have her school and education with her septa. And when she is out and see everything beautiful, it's warm. I mean, she come from up north, nothing happened. It's dark all the time. I live up north. I can understand a young girl come down where it's a busy life and she starts to look at people and she see all the beautiful people. She has never seen beautiful people up north because it's cold there, much clothes on. So she fell in love with the place, I believe. And if she hadn't been married off to Joffrey, I think she could have found something there down in King's Landing that would have made both her family and herself happy. But now she is betrothed to Joffrey, so but she sees more in King's Landing than him. First of all, he is angry with her for a long time when she is down there, so she have opportunity to do other things.
She does, and she seems to kind of fit in there well. You have Septa Mordane, who really taught her a lot. She did more
Mm.
than Catelyn ever did for her. I would say Septa Mordane was. I mean, would you argue with me that Septa Mordane was more of a mother to
No, no,
Sansa than
you're so
Catelyn
right.
was?
Yeah.
And yeah, she's learning all of these proper courtesies while her father is having the fear for her here. Sansa's
Mm.
still at this point, up until Ned gets beheaded, she is living in a fantasy land. And you know who lives in fantasy land? All children. So don't
Mm.
be casting blame on Sansa. Everybody would do it. You know, me and you would probably do it in the same situation. We're groomed to be, we're the eldest daughter. We're supposed to be married off to someone powerful. Holy crap. We're
Mm.
betrothed to the king to be. What are you supposed
Yeah.
to do? Be reasonable? No, she's not old enough to be that wise. Sansa, and you say Arya was that wise. No, Arya was just different.
Yeah.
She went about the world differently and never wanted a husband, never wanted to be a lady. So she's gonna
No.
see it through different lenses, you know.
Mm. And I think Ned did one thing again, not so wise, and that was when he told the girls that they are going to leave. Both Arya and Sansa were devastated when they got the news that they will pack their things and go. I think if he have sat down with Sansa and talked a bit about the reasons, everything would have been different. She have no one to rely on, no one to talk to. If her mother has been there, she would immediately have gone to her first and discussed it. And now she doesn't know anything. She feels responsible for her family's future. She thinks her father have got some crazy idea and she have to save the day. And he didn't do anything to let her understand how important this was.
And I agree with you a little bit. I still say it's slightly Sansa's fault. Now, only because she should have learned a lesson at the Crossroads Inn with what happened to Lady. This was Cersei's doing. Now, she blames Arya and Ned for this, but Cersei is the one that suggested that Lady be killed in place of Nymeria. And Sansa never really even brings this back up. She just blames Ned and blames Arya. You can blame Arya to an extent, but not for the choice of killing Lady. That's like punishing one child for the other child's sins.
Mm,
It just kind of makes no sense. It's just spiteful and evil, and she didn't really see that. She was still blinded by
mm,
this becoming future queen type thing. And
mm,
I do think Ned was a little hasty. He shouldn't have told anyone he was leaving, especially the children. You don't tell your kids anything you don't want everyone knowing. Because kids talk. They can't help themselves. They have no filter. Even a 14-year
yeah,
old.
yeah, yeah. I agree what you're saying, absolutely. But I think that even if she should have learned more, but she got a connection early with Cersei, and this lady business, I think she has put that behind her because it was so terrible. And she didn't have anyone else to talk to. Arya, she rushed away, and I believe she tried to find out a way to bring Sirio Perel with them on the boat and take him with her home. But yeah, that was not a great moment for Sansa, but I can still understand her. She stands there all alone. She had to do a quick thinking and what is the next move. And it she did the wrong move, absolutely. But I can understand that she did it, even if it was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, she had no way of knowing. She didn't have all the information at hand, and she's a kid. She's a kid. She makes mistakes. Arya's mistakes. She physically kills people. Sansa's mistake, people get killed. No, either way, people die. I'm just kidding.
So
Everybody makes mistakes, though. That is life. You're not going to have any perfect characters. And if you do, especially in this series, you better watch out for them because they're going to turn. They've been up to something the whole time if they're coming off perfect. And usually the people
mm,
that are too perfect, they die pretty quick. You got a little
yeah,
too much honor. Yeah, let's kill you off, Ned. So
yeah.
I think it begs to differ. And speaking of Ned, poor Ned lost his head. Um, little
It was
poem for you.
terrible.
I
Mm,
know that was awful, especially I'd seen the first season before. I'd never read the books. I didn't start reading the books until a couple seasons in. That really got me, that killing the one of the main characters in the beginning. That sold me on the show, even though it was very, very tragic. But Sansa, yeah, for sure blames herself for this. No doubt. She definitely feels like she bears some responsibility. And then she gets tormented by Joffrey.
yeah.
And she learns, well, how to make that coat of armor that is her courtesy even thicker. And the Hound is one of the few people again that still steps in, the perfect little bird. And of all things, he doesn't want you to call him a knight, but he's more chivalrous than any of the Kingsguard that we have seen thus far. He seems to be the only one that cares, and understands. He seemingly understands what a true lady, has to go through. He sees something in
Mm.
her that I think, and in the books, she thinks they kiss. They never kiss, blah, blah, blah. But Sans and the Hound, they get a little intimate here. We won't talk about, not literally intimate, but we won't get too much into Joffrey. Screw that guy. But she ends up having to get married to Tyrion, which flips all of her dreams and aspirations upon its head.
Mm.
Um, and this is even after her father dies. She's still supposed to marry Joffrey, but I mean, he just passes her up. Um,
Mm.
how'd you feel about that storyline? And I don't know, just speak on that. Preach to me.
Well, I think she loved when Marjorie and the Tyrells, when they come and release her from Joffrey's bond. I thought she was safe. And Joffrey told her that she can never be safe, even if he's married to Marjorie. But that storyline, when Lady Olenna came in and Sansa learned a bit about her, I think that was a good period in Sansa's time. She learned to trust people a bit. She have been so scared to, she haven't had anyone to talk to. The marriage to Tyrion, of course, she didn't love that, but as you say, she acted as she's supposed to, and she finds that he is a kind man. And I don't think she thought this marriage after a while was so terrible. It was not her dream, but I think she liked Tyrion uh, as a man, not as a husband, but as a man.
Yeah, I mean, she respected him. He seemed to respect her. He's a little sleazier in the books, but he still ultimately has some sort of moral compass when it comes to Sansa. Sansa seems to have this effect on people. I think it's the innocence and how true she is. She's not faking being a lady. She really is the personification of a lady, and that's why her direwolf's named that. That's why her storyline is going to be the way it is. That's why also Cersei acts really weird towards her as well, because you have that prophecy of the younger, more beautiful queen. A lot of
Yeah,
people want to say Daenerys. A lot of no, it's Sansa. You know why? Because Sansa was the first one to come up as the younger, more beautiful queen, and she got cast aside really quickly. Her journey will bring her back around because the beginning of the story always comes back around in the end, and as it somewhat did in season 8 of Game of Thrones.
yeah.
But w- with that rivalry, the younger, more beautiful queen. What are your thoughts on that with Sansa? I know how you feel, but tell the world.
Well, I think that Sansa is the younger and most beautiful queen that there will ever be, because I think she fits for that. And I thought Cersei, and I think Cersei saw that in Sansa. Some way she can control Sansa. Um, I don't think she fears her like she did with Marjorie later, because I think she could guide Sansa. She can control her somehow, but she knew if the years pass by, then she will be dangerous, because she can see that Sansa is learning. She's learning, and it's not just from her. She's learning from Lady Olenna, she's learning from Littlefinger. So I don't think she's afraid for her right now, but she has to go for the long run, because she's going to be dangerous for Cersei in the end.
Yes, Cersei really has a lot more confidence at this point. I think she does see her as a threat, but sees her as a controllable threat, like you were saying.
Mm.
And when Marjorie comes in, she sees a little bit there. She's getting mad, but I think the death of Joffrey seals the deal for her to start dwelling on the prophecy a little more. It's always in the
Mm.
back of her mind, and she's possibly just waiting for it to happen. But until something like that happens, a big event in a prophecy, you're not going to necessarily let it guide your entire life. But once one of the things come true, you're going to go into a craze. And
Mm.
then that's, she immediately blames Sansa for the death of Joffrey. Marjorie, had been Sansa's real friend as Olenna, kind of the only women of the court, like you said, that she could talk to or trust. She had Shay, but you know,
Yeah,
for whatever that's worth.
yeah.
And the real
Somehow, I think Cersei really believes that Sansa and Tyrion did this,
Oh
even
yeah.
when she find somewhere deep down she wants them to be the one who did this to Joffrey,
Well, she
to
definitely thinks
love the
Tyrion is
hate
that
for them. Mm.
Valonqar. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, that she loves to hate that idea that it's Tyrion and Sansa that did this damage to her. Um, I don't ever think she will be 100% convinced that they didn't have anything to do with Joffrey's death.
Yeah, I know. You couldn't. You could. Someone could confess to it. She would still not completely
No,
believe them.
no,
And but this, you know, Sansa's isolation, her not really getting to talk to too many people, is the definite. It gives Littlefinger an opportunity to move in and play his game, which he's been playing the whole time while watching her. Now he's kind of molding her, but he's teaching her at the same time as manipulating her. I feel
yeah,
like maybe he has some sort of affection, but at the same time, with his long game that he's playing, the long con, he has to have her to fall in love with him, I think, for his plans to work out. Because she is the power of Winterfell. She is the North, you know, especially after Rob's death. She is the key to the North. And at this point, she's the next best thing to Catelyn. I mean, she is the young Catelyn and more beautiful besides, right?
mm. I think Littlefinger is perfect teacher for Sansa. Uh, I personally don't think he loves Sansa, and I don't think he loved Kate either. I think he loved her more, that he got eager from the reaction to build his life, to grow as a man and take every opportunity. Maybe he likes her or feel for her like maybe a daughter, but I don't think he loves her like a woman. Uh, she is a tool for him for his future. But I think he's a great teacher to her. You can hate Littlefinger, but he's so smart. He he is a great teacher for her. Yeah,
And in the books, it gets a little more intimate there at the Vale. But
yeah.
I would tend to agree with you. I
He's a
think
man.
yeah, I
He,
mean,
I
if he
mean,
can,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. But I mean, of course, he can be sleazy. I mean, even if he's a great mind, he can be a sleazy man with a great mind. But really love her like a woman to be married to. No, but marry her later if he can get Winterfell or he can get the throne. Yes, but it's only his own plan for his own future. She's a tool, like
Yeah.
mm, I think.
Littlefinger's a tool too. No, that's
Yeah,
really all it is. He doesn't love anyone but himself. I don't think he may have loved Kat at one time. That was his one heartbreak, and he's just used that to, as hate. He
yeah,
he lets hate drive him and motivate him till the end, and he has more lofty goals in mind. Now,
yeah,
this is, she escapes after this death and goes on up to the Vale and has to assume herself as a bastard.
yeah.
Even when she comes out to Liza, that no one can know. So she gets immediately kind of put in Jon Snow's situation here. And in the books, there's a lot of introspective thought from her about realizing how Jon must have felt, and she starts to empathize with him a little more. But
Mm,
also, she learns how to lie in the Vale, right?
yeah, she does. And I think that's also a hard thing for her from the start. When she starts lying and she can tell that people believes what she say, uh, it got easier and easier for every day. Um, and until a day she finds out that she almost think that this other girl and not as Sansa. That's a scary thing to live like that and almost lose your identity. And that's also parallel to Arya and all her different lives. The sisters are similar on each part of the world.
They really are. They really are. They're in a what would you call it? A mysterious, unknown place, a new place for them that isn't that they're learning and growing through. Almost an apprenticeship. Sansa is apprenticing to to be able to play the Game of Thrones, and Littlefinger may see some potential in her for that. Maybe not when he actually had Joffrey killed by Olenna, but maybe we know that Littlefinger's plans change. He knows that you can't necessarily plan for chaos. So
No,
he flows with stuff, and once she lied for him about the death of Liza, I think he sees a little more in her. And this is where I would kind of maybe argue that he could slightly be in love with her now, seeing that that may turn him on, her being manipulative like that, if that makes sense. But that would be the only instance I would say of love that he would have for her.
I think that he is so impressed with himself that he have taught her so much. So I think he get turned on of himself for have achieving this.
I
He's so proud of himself.
I can, okay, I can't argue with that. Maybe, maybe for sure, maybe. Uh, she has kind of a tough time of it here, and I'm gonna kind of let you take over a little bit And from Sansa's story here on out, the book, she's still in the Vale, but we'll go through her story throughout the TV series of Game of
Yeah.
Thrones, and let's bring up anything in particular you wanna chat about her path from the Vale to the Queen of the North.
Yes, that's one thing, and that is when they have gone up to when Brienne, Pod, and her are arriving at the north to John, to the wall, and they gather the wildlings, and then they go and talk to Ramsay out in the field and try to convince him to give up. And Ramsay convinced them to kneel. And um, they have a meeting before Battle of the Bastards. And we have Davos, we have Tormund, and we have Jon, and we have Sansa. And they are making this war strategic. And no one asks Sansa anything. They make their plans about to beat Ramsay and just look over her head and not bringing her in to this discussion. And she is silenced during this meeting. She let them talk. And afterwards, she talked to John, and she was not pleased with his way of just doesn't listen to her what she knew about Ramsay. And that is a thing I look into right now that I think is very interesting because John doesn't do this to be cruel or mean or something. He just doesn't think that Sansa can contribute
Right.
with information. That's one part that I think everything could have been a bit different if they have listened to her. And then we can also argue if she should have told him about the Knights of the Vale, that they will arrive. But just this planning, he doesn't want to listen to her, what she have to say.
Yeah, and I mean, even with the Knights of the Vale, it goes back to him not necessarily asking her, not including her in on these plans. Now, you can blame Sansa and Jon a little bit for this, but I would say it's more to blame society and the roles
Mm.
that women are put in Westeros. She's not even thought of as a war counselor, and the women that we see in A Song of Ice and Fire or in Game of Thrones that are part of a council of war have really had to do all kinds of crazy. They've had to be really badass and earn their way there. They don't
Mm.
just, if they say something, they're not heard. Now, the men need to be respected as well, but it does, it's just society. It's a little easier for a man to get his word in, especially in something that's perceived as manly as war is.
Mm.
And yes, of course, more men, men in this society, they go to war. The women, there's a good line in Fire and Blood, and one of Queen Alysanne's laws where it's the second wife couldn't cast out the first the first wife's sons, and it
No.
was basically during times of peace. All there would be the men would live and the women would die because women, they give their life on the birthing bed, especially in a time like this where medical
Yeah.
faculties are not any good. And men, they die at war. And when
Mm.
there isn't any war, there's a surplus of men.
Yeah.
That's never good. Uh,
No.
but that's just how it is. And, you can get mad about it and say, oh, why did they do that? Well, that's just kind of how life was. We
Yeah.
can't try to put today's standards on on medieval times it just wasn't that way.
No. And I always love when people interact with each other. That's why I look at shows. And if there are less interaction, I get bored. I like when people talk together. And this scene when Sansa and John argue, they always end. You can see they are family, how much they care for each other. They can speak loud and be angry at each other, but in the end, they understand what the other person says and they don't leave angry with each other. They always somehow make up. And that's something I love about the show, that you can see so much interaction, so much speech between people. And this is one that stood out for me. It's so much emotions around
Yeah.
this Ramsey, and you never know if they are going to win. What happens if they don't win?
And I think she should have told John about the Knights of the Vale for the sheer fact it would have saved lives. Would
Mm.
it have saved Rickon? I don't know. I doubt
No,
it. Ramsay was going to kill him regardless. But lives, it would have saved. There could have been a different battle strategy or the same one. But maybe everyone wouldn't have got surrounded and maybe one wouldn't have died.
mm.
But it
Yeah,
worked out how it was supposed to. I'm not gonna lie, I think it was a little sloppy in how it was done on the show, but it was really good as far as the episode goes. Because as far as a war tactic, it was a pretty good one. It was a pretty
mm.
good one where they flanked from the side. All of the mounted knights is which is what made the difference, and it was kind of an fu to John. It's like you're gonna judge me for being a woman. I know I sound woke saying this, but this is what it was. You're gonna judge me for being a woman, and also John still sees her as the little girl he grew up with. He hasn't
Mm.
got to meet her since then, right? So he still sees her and is judging her for her past and who she was as a child. And you could say Sansa did that a little bit to him, but more so John. So she was insulted, to say the least. But I think also there's a tactic here in not telling them about the Knights of the Vale. If Ramsay had spies, I, I could say that, you know, there could be something to it, but I don't know. What
No,
do you think? I'm floundering
no,
here.
no. I don't think Sansa have that as a tactic. I think she had a battle inside herself, in her soul, and in her heart, because this with the veil, there is also Littlefinger who always wants something in return. She have not forgive him yet for putting her in Winterfell and marry her off to Ramsay. She doesn't want them to come. She doesn't want to have anything to do with Littlefinger. She feels that she have to do this. And I think these emotions inside of her, she doesn't want to talk about it. Maybe they will not arrive in time. If I say something and they will don't show up, I think it's more in her head, but I don't think it was tactic. I think it was just a feeling, a bad feeling she had about bringing them in. Of course, they saved a lot of the day, but I don't think she felt so good about it, that they need to get Littlefinger. She wanted to go to other houses to get more men, to get more time. So she didn't have to contact Littlefinger. So I think that's emotional for her, not smart, strategic.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a good analysis. I mean, also she's good at training dogs. I'm just kidding, but she does get some Ramsay
Mm,
face eating action. She does get her revenge for something that definitely doesn't happen in the books, and we don't
no.
really have to discuss this. But she does get her revenge on Ramsay, which is very very sweet here, and she takes charge of Winterfell. It is her home. John still somewhat lost, as he was all throughout the whole series of Game of Thrones, just a lost soul, meandering around the continent. Uh, but but Sansa here, she starts rebuilding. She starts, ordering the food stock. She starts doing everything that Bran was doing. when they left and he was left in charge of season one, but doing it more capable, actually teaching armorers how to armor, which makes no sense, but
No,
good thing she caught
no,
that.
yeah, no, that's silly. But I think she saw the North as much as she loved to go down to King's Landing, as much she loved to come back to the North where she feels some kind of safe. And the people up there has been through the Greyjoys, Theon coming and taking over, and then Ramsay. They lived under threat from the Ramsay, and I think she saw the people, she saw the North with eyes that not everyone saw, and she made decisions for the North that maybe people think she only did for herself. Of course, you are yourself, and of course, you think about yourself, but I think she saw the needing North, and that's why she fell into this role as a fixer that saw everything, did see everything that was needed, but the things with armor, that's just silly.
Oh yeah, well, no, that's just me throwing out some dumb stuff. But
Yeah, but it's silly.
it does turn out pretty good though, because yes, she's in what you would call a traditional woman's role, but she is exceptionally great at it. And you could argue, oh, why did Sansa portray Jon? But we'll get there. With Dany coming in, and we get this war for the dead. You know, the long night coming. The others are coming for us, and she has understandably some reservations about Jon going and asking for Dany's help. You know, the last Targaryen king, her father, did burn Brandon and Brandon's father, you know, and Ned's father alive. You know, well, father
Mhm.
got burned alive. Brandon strangled himself to death in like this choker that was made. I can't remember the exact name of it, but she remembers history. You know, she read a lot, of course. This doesn't mean that she was right, but she seemingly has that motherly role and figure. And I've talked about Catelyn Stark, and you can say she's kind of the mother personified early on in the books. I think as far as the show goes, where Sansa went, she ends up becoming the mother personified, even though she's of the old gods. But she's kind of a motherly figure here. Starts to get that way anyway. That's how I feel.
Mm.
What you think?
I think she is afraid. I think she is afraid of Cersei, the threat from the south. Um, I think she is afraid of things that she don't know, like Daenerys. She knows the history, as you say, and she thinks that John was granted king in the north, and that's not an easy thing to get from the northern men's that and women, that they gave him this role up north, and I think she felt that he didn't take care of that role. He maybe didn't need to bend the knee to Daenerys. Um, she doesn't have all the history, but I think a lot of it is fear. She believed that he will never come back. If he goes down to Daenerys and meet her, he will never arrive back home. And then he does it, and he have put his crown down. So it's emotions and fear. But I think fear is a big drive in Sansa. Um, she wants the North to be the safe place. Don't bring anyone else in. I don't say it's the right thing she did, but I think she wants them out of the North.
Yeah, I think she also sees how people don't understand the North and they don't respect Northern customs, and she feels like the North in itself is an altogether different people. And this is, you know, she this, she states pretty much without saying exactly that the North should be free and independent of, the rest of Westeros. This is how she feels. Whether you believe that or not, I think there's some truth to it. They have a complete different religion. They are different people. Their lives are completely different, as you said. They're more country folk. They're harder, a more rugged people. But also, they don't respond to the same things that the southern lords do. They don't respond the same way. They're a prickly bunch. And I think she realizes that more than John does. I think she was scared more for, even if Danny doesn't turn on John, how does the North feel about John for him bending the knee to a Southern lord? Especially after they've already kind of fought for their independence in a sense.
Yeah, and that's exactly, I think, what Sansa thinks. Um, the northern things, like you say, they need some kind of respect from the people they choose, and it's like he doesn't deserve the royalty they gave him. Um, I think she's afraid that they will turn on John and the house. Um, it's 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 difficult. I do like both Daenerys character and Jon and Sansa and Arya, and there is some conflicts how to think about each character. But I think Sansa just see Jon give up his crown too easy, and I can think if we look at the show, I think he didn't have to bend the knee so soon as he did. So I think that Sansa is correct there, that he could have bring her home, and he could still be king and then work together with Daenerys and other parts of the Westeros houses, but not just give up something the northern men have ruled for.
Yeah, they gave that to him. They bestowed the honor upon him, and he took it upon himself to basically relinquish that to someone else. So she
Mm.
has a really good point there. Like you can't say that Sansa's wrong in this aspect. And I think this is what leads her to be more respected by the Northern Lords. In a way, she speaks her mind. You could say you could you could argue that some instances she questions John or other people's authority in public when she shouldn't. She maybe should talk to them behind closed doors, but these are small potatoes, honestly, when you're looking at the big picture of things. And she rightfully, and we saw that in season 8, she's rightfully wary of Danny and what she could become uh, with all of that power that she has that comes with having a dragon. That's destructive, world destructive power that she can't handle, and she knows. Well, not that she can't handle that. Well, that most men cannot handle that type of power. And she's seen Littlefinger. She's seen Cersei. She's even seen Olenna Tyrell, who Olenna is a nice person, but she's evil in her own right, even though we all like her. She
Mm.
does some crazy things. There's no one that Sansa's had to really see that's been just and good for a long time since like Septim Ordain, I think. So
Yeah.
it's hard for her to trust anyone, especially a self-proclaimed queen from across the narrow sea that has 3 dragons.
Yeah, and I think it would have been different if he had went down to Daenerys and didn't bend the knee. He didn't have to do that. And I think the dynamic between the girls, Sansa and Daenerys, would have been different if Jon still would have been king in the north. They could have support, and he could have bent the knees later on when he got his northern men to see what he saw in Daenerys. And this is the show. We don't know what will happen in the books, if it will be similar or if it will be totally different. But here she had the opportunity to come up to the north and be heard. By Jon bending the knee, he did never get Daenerys any opportunity to be seen as the woman as she is or were.
Yeah. I mean, it's true, and Daenerys did do a great thing. She saved the world and the North. Okay, we'll give her that. But it's almost like that, no thanks is enough for her. And we do see this a little bit mirrored here, where Jon gets more of the credit for what happened in the Long Night than Dany does. But
Mhm.
mainly, if you really look at it, Dany probably perceived that as he's a man, right? But think about who Dany is. Nobody knows her. She's in a place with strangers, so they're if you're in a room and your friend and a complete stranger did something amazing, you're going to talk more about your friend just because you're comfortable and know them, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, but she starts to see these perceived conflicts and makes up things in her head. And I think this is honestly a product of everything that's happened in the lower seasons. I know we're not talking about Dany right now, but this comes into play with what Sansa's seeing her do. And I would say, I would ask you this. With everything that Dany did and the slow decline that Sansa really knew was happening. I don't think she knew she was going to burn King's Landing, but I had a theory running during the season that Sansa and Brienne would come down and bring an army from the north to retake King's Landing or have to fight Dany. That didn't end up happening in a sense, even though it kind of did. But from here, do you think Sansa should have sent an army down there just in case? Do you think she could have sent a spy? Is there anything more that Sansa could have did in the situation she was in?
She
You know what I
could
mean?
have done. Yeah, but I think it was too early. I think Sansa hasn't come so far yet. And Daenerys, she is a conqueror, she is not a ruler. I think she have done amazing deeds, and she went all the way out there and she fight like a ferocious woman or like a man. Uh, she did a great job. She had the opportunity when in the show when she and Sansa sat down and talked, because Dany had this great side of a woman, and she was there connecting with Sansa, and Sansa let her guard down, and then she brings up the north and something happens there. Dany was not ready to give Sansa something, and maybe that was correct, but something happens there. If they could have talked a bit longer, if they didn't start get hostile with each other, if they can't agree on the north, that was a breaking point. Everything could have been so different if she just could have given Sansa something, some opening. We talk about it later, or I will think about it, something. If the
Yeah.
time has passed more, I think that Sansa could have felt safe up in the north and start to look down south. But I don't think she was ready to get any spies down or gather someone and go down to the south. No, too soon, I think. She was not ready for that responsibility.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was hoping she would send a small, select group of people, including Gendry and Brienne and Podrick, could all go down there on a mission to maybe watch after Jon. And then in this way, we have a way for Jon to get out of there without Grey Worm just locking him up for 30 days or
Yeah,
however long he did. That was weird. There should have been some kind of battle because
yeah,
a couple of thousand Unsullied are not going to hold the whole of King's Landing, especially when most of it's burnt down. How are they
yeah.
going to stop people from getting in? Anyways, I, it'd have been nice, a little rogue force. But
Mm.
how do you feel like Sansa was affected in this end game with Westerosi standards for women? Do you think she was? I don't know. Yeah, just how do you feel about where she ended up, and is there anything you would change? And just maybe how you think this could change how women are perceived in Westeros?
First of all, the thing I want to change is that the Hound Sandor Clegane goes up against his brother alone. Uh,
Yes.
they could have taken him down with a couple of. I hate that. I hate that because that was not necessary to let him go up there, and I see it's some kind of poetic, but that's not the end for Sandor Clegane in my head. Somehow I think Sansa is exactly where she is. She is queen in the north, maybe wardeness of the north. I don't know if she necessarily needs to be the queen, but she will need her own god. And for me, Sandor is her queen's god or warden of the north god. And I don't think she ever will marry. I think we can see her in our own history, strong female rulers. I mean, Daenerys was a ruler, Cersei was a ruler. I don't think they had a problem with women in power. Olenna was also a ruler
Yeah.
besides her son. So I don't think the women need that help in to get to the authority of ruling. But I think Sansa would have stayed unmarried and she will have her guard beside her and they could do whatever they want behind the scenes. Um,
Ha ha.
so
Fanfic, Sansan
yeah,
theories
yeah,
abound.
yeah, yeah. So some place I can't see Sansa at Queen of Seven Kingdoms. I don't think that's the right place for her. North is the right place for her.
Hmm. Maybe. See, we would have to finagle around because the books are going to be different. I think maybe some of the
Yeah,
things will be the same as far as broad strokes, but the story of how they get there is going to be. There's just different characters. There's characters that aren't in the show, they're in the books. There's dead
yeah,
characters that are alive in the books. There's dead
yeah.
characters that are alive in the show. Regardless, it's gonna this is going to be a new journey once we read this, and that's going to bring me to my last subject, which will kind of talk about where Sansa's going to go in the books. And as I know you want her to be the Wardeness of the North or the Queen of the North, uh, I would say she could be the Queen, period. And there's a few scenarios we could get there. But first, I will say, with the Sandor the Hound Clegane in the books, he is on the Quiet Isle, digging graves. His horse, Stranger, is in a stall, biting people's faces off. He's a real rowdy kind of guy. I think the uprising with the faithful and the new stars and swords that are coming out, and Cersei's going to want to wipe out, just like in the show, she's going to want to wipe out the faith. She's kind of going to pull a Magor in this sense. And I think the Hound's going to have to fight and get his way out of there. Now, I will say, how will the Hound find Sansa again? Because they're a long way from each other. The Hound is near King's Landing, not necessarily right by it, but he's closer to there. Sansa is in the Vale, which is, bordering the north. It's
Mm.
right below White Harbor. Now, Sansa, I fear, is going to be kidnapped by Shadwell, the Mad Mouse,
Yeah.
who, Brienne was traveling with. And Brienne was looking for a maid of 4 and 10, and by now it's gotten out that people are looking for Sansa Stark. I think someone will figure it out. Shadwell will be returning toward King's Landing. I think he will come in contact with the Sandor. Sandor set up to be the knight in shining armor for her, even though he is not a knight. He epitomizes a knight, but a knight in today's world isn't the same as what it used to be. It may have never been what it was. Sir Duncan the Tall has these issues as well.
Yeah.
So, where do you think? Do you feel like he could potentially be a love interest? I know we got a lot of Sand fans out there. Do you feel like he could be a love interest in the books?
Of course. Yes. Why are they both in the same book? Of course there will be some love interest. I can't see it any other way. And for me, it's 100% sure that nothing should have happened down in King's Landing. I know Sansa fantasized over the nun kiss and he kept his cloak, and but I don't think Sandor looked at her like that. He fancied her some way, but not like a woman. The years apart or the time apart that make her grow and make him maybe more vulnerable than hateful and just want to go out and kill people when they meet up. And I think, as you say, if Sansa get kidnapped, maybe that's where their storyline connect. I don't know. I don't know if she doesn't got kidnapped. When do they going to meet up? I can't even guess. But some love interest, yes, of course.
I think Sandor's gonna find out about his brother still being alive. Now, when we talk to, uh, I think it's the Septon that's on the Quiet Isle. I can't remember his name, but he was talking about the big man, the gravedigger, as he was called, had this mortal, was telling Brienne, Brienne finds out it's the Hound basically,
Mm,
because his life was motivated by wanting to kill his brother, and I think he thinks his brother's dead. And he doesn't have that motivation anymore. If he finds out Sir Robert Strong's around, this is going to get the Hound on the road. If the
yeah.
Hound's on the road and Sir Shadrick is bringing Sansa back to King's Landing, there you go. They'll be able
Mm,
to easily meet up. I know it sounds simple. The details may be a little more complicated, but I think I've been able to, I wouldn't say predict, but the simple storylines usually are the ones that play out more. Simple storylines
yeah.
with complicated details, but the base of it, is kind of, because why would you have the Hound do that? Why would you have her keep remembering him if they're never going to
Mm,
meet again? And it's going to
yeah.
be more than whatever happened at the table in season 8, in my opinion. And I do think if she's going to have a Queen's Guard, he will be the Lord Commander of it, even though I would say he would. That may be the only person he would ever get knighted for is Sansa. That would be super
Mm,
romantic if they never
yeah.
got together, and he took up the knight spurs for her and her only. That would
Mm,
be really romantic, like a
yeah.
Duncan and Rohan situation.
I don't think George R. R. Martin can go from the Beauty and the Beast and create this
Beauty and the
thing in
Beast.
the yeah, in the beginning of his book and not continue it later on. Uh, I don't ever see a marriage between them. That is to go too far. But Sansa will not marry anyone. She will grow old. But you can have a life behind the curtain and have one in front because she is from a great house, and if she gets to be the queen or wardeness of the north, he can never fit like a husband for her. I don't think so, but it's not necessary to be married in
I
their
agree.
story.
I agree. I think she can show that. I mean, maybe if you're worrying about heirs or something of that matter, but you don't even really have to go that far. She can have an heir to her body that isn't, her baby. And she can have babies without being married. It just depends on her.
Yeah, and we don't know what will happen to her up in the area. We know what happened to her in the show. We don't really know what's going to happen in the books. So
Mm-mm.
maybe the air thing, maybe that's not her journey to go. We have to be careful with the Stark
Mhm.
house, of course, but maybe that's not her journey to to get kids and that
Yeah,
kind.
that's
Maybe I don't know.
that's one reason I don't think she'll be Wardeness of the North. Because then a Stark wouldn't rule Winterfell again after she passes. That's why I think I'm gonna go for bigger aspirations. Sansa's gonna be queen of all of Westeros, and she may let there be an independent North. She may be the reason that the North gets to be independent, but I think she is. I think she's more fit to be a Southern lady with how she plays the Game of Thrones, in my opinion, as far as the books go, because it is a good deal different.
Mm, it
And
is.
how she's gonna shake Littlefinger, I don't know, but she's gonna have to outplay him. And yeah, that'd be the last thing I'll ask you. How do you think she's going to shake out or get rid of Littlefinger in the books? Um, there's no foreshadowing that I know of for it, like how she's going to do it. But I assume it's going to come from her playing him, and maybe she acts like she's in love with him. Maybe.
No. I, first of all, I hope that will not be the Arya Sansa thing that was
Nah.
in the show. It was awful. I enjoy the show. I enjoy season 8. I know a lot of people doesn't do that, but that storyline I didn't like. I think somehow he will go too far. He will go too far for her. I mean, she will let him go on. She can get things from him. He is a good teacher, and but something he must do something that her eyes open, that she will see him for the man he really is. And if she's going to let him be killed, I don't know, but somehow strip him from all of his earnings through the years. I don't know what will pain him more, if death is the worst thing for him or something else. But that it will take some time, I believe. I think he will be in for the long run. Um, he will
Hmm.
not kill himself early in the books, I think. And I don't want him to be killed off early in the books either, because I think he's one of the most interesting characters in the books
Well,
and in the.
I think George thinks is one of his favorite characters. I believe, like, it's definitely the smartest and it's one of the most interesting characters, whether you love or hate him. He makes the wheels turn in a Game of Thrones or in a Song of Ice and Fire. And I hate saying this, but George can do this. If you've read any of other George's works, he's a dark bastard.
Mm.
What if Sansa slowly molds into not being a good person anymore in the books?
Oh,
Just a
oh,
thought.
yeah, yes, and I'm scared of that. That's why I love the show, because I think she have done her journey is fantastic, and I think she have done mostly the things right. No one is perfect. It would be terrible if people would be perfect all the time, and she is not. But overall, I think her journey has been fantastic. Well done, Sansa Stark. But in the books, I do hope she stays good. I don't want to have that dark path in front of her. No. Oh, scary thing. Don't say like that.
Well, I think she is going to do some untasteful things, but everybody
Yeah.
in this world, in order to survive, in order to move up, because she's not only trying to move up in the world, trying to make her way in the world. She has a warrant out on her head, dead. People want her
Mm.
dead. She also is under an assumed identity. Another comparison with her sister Arya, which I think we probably need to do a sister on sister comparison one of these days.
Yeah,
I'll talk with you about that later.
yeah, love to do that.
And she is and there's a lot of pressure. She is in a situation where she can be molded into a completely different person and unrecognizable from what we saw as the little girl in the beginning. The same way Arya is almost unrecognizable in the books.
Mm.
Uh, and yes, that does scare me. And that doesn't mean she can't have a good end, but in my opinion, that means she's going to do some distasteful things uh, that we may not agree with. Because, well, Jern may surprise us, but that's just my opinion on it. You know?
Maybe that's when Sandor comes in
Mm. Ask,
and
what are you doing,
put
little bird?
yeah, exactly.
Don't be
Mm.
dumb.
Well, of course, she needs to have a darker side too. Everyone has to have that in the book, otherwise it gets boring. You have to got some nerve in the book, and but I do hope in the end that she will be a great person and not a awful person. You
Yeah.
got me nervous now.
Oh, don't get nervous. There's just all kinds of possibilities. That's what we love
Yeah,
about this show and
yeah,
book
yeah,
series.
yeah,
It's so much
absolutely.
fun. Well,
Mm.
Katrina, I think this has been awesome. If you have anything else you'd like to tell the people about Sansa, now is your time. Uh, you know, don't go for a couple of hours or anything, but
Oh,
if you have a final thought that you want to leave with everyone, and then, just tell everybody where they can find you.
well, first of all, I think you have to look at Sansa through the eyes of people during her time period. That I notice about the people who dislike Sansa and loves people like Brienne and Daenerys and uh, little ferocious little Lyanna Mormont. They act like boys. Sometimes they are good at sword fight. And Sansa, she's good to be a lady. She do what she's taught. She have been drilled like that from a very young age, and she does almost everything right. And people dislike that, but you celebrate people who go breaking stereotype, who do things that you shouldn't do, or um, I think that's the thing for me, which has been the problem, that people who do things the right way get so much dislike, and vice versa. And then I also love the girls who go their own way. So it's double thinking from my side. But
Well,
that's the thing with Sansa. I think she does almost everything right. She do the things we expect from a girl in her class to do. Um, and I think she do a great job. And I enjoy looking into her as a character, as her interactions with other people, and how other people look at her. I think she's a fantastic character.
hey, I agree, and but a lot of what you just said too. It Sansa is her own person, and that is who she is. She's not trying to be something she's not. That's what's beautiful
No,
about it. You may be like, oh, she's perfect. She's this, she's that. It's more probably annoying you that she's just making all of these good decisions, or
yeah,
having all these good things happen to her, or she's just acting too girly that annoys you. But that's who she is. And love it or hate it,
yes.
you gotta respect it, I guess.
Yeah. And I think we can look at every character and every people, even people we meet out on the street every day, at work, at school, see the good things in people. Then we have Joffrey and we have Ramsay, people who doesn't have anything good in them, but overall, every people have something good to focus on that instead of the bad things. Um, that's overall my way of thinking. And I have to apologize for my poor English. I have done my best. It's not easy to do a thing like this in a language which is not your own.
Hey, you did fantastic. You're an amazing person, okay? I'm not kissing your hiney. I'm just telling you,
For
you did awesome.
myself,
This was fun.
for express what I think about her. But welcome into my page if you want to listen to that. Or look into Fear the Walking Dead, that I think is an amazing show. I do not like Walking Dead as much, but Fear, it's different. Yes, there are zombies, but there are more interaction between people. So if you haven't watched into that, you're welcome to see my season 5 materials.
That's right, you better do it. Listen to my friend Katrin C and go to her channel. Katrin C from my point of view. It will be in the descriptions, and if you're here when we're premiering, it will be linked in the live chat, so you'll see that. I hope everybody has enjoyed this. I'm going to give a special thank you to my crazy crew, my patrons, and if you haven't checked me out on Patreon, go do it. Lots and lots of extra stuff. I just can't seem to stop working. Now, we have a lot of Fire and Blood stuff, movie reviews, what you need to do more of, but lots of things. Go check it out if you want to. Amy True, Anime Lover Nicole, Bobby Catalano, Catherine Cronin, Catherine Harding, Clarissa Thompson, Dark Mother, John St. Baptiste, KCC of House Lorebridge, Katrin C from my point of view, I don't know who that is, Nancy T, Santivia Major, Steve York, and the podcastat.com family of podcasts. You also know them as the podcast that drinks and knows things, the podcast that floats down here, and the podcast that must not be named. Yeah, go check out all that stuff. And Katrin, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure. I guess let's say bye to the people like weirdos.
Yeah, bye, and thank
Bye.
you. Bye.